Before we begin tonight's story, leave a comment and tell us which city you're listening to Midnight Letters from. And if you're still here by the end, try giving the story a rating from 0 to 10. Now then, let's begin. I can still vividly recall the overpowering scent of expensive Tom Ford cologne in that Ritz-Carlton suite in Midtown Manhattan that night. Everything was happening in a blur of passion, guilt, and excitement. Julian, my CEO, was pouring a second glass of red wine. And then, knock, knock, knock. 3 knocks. Not loud, not frantic. Just 3 slow, deliberate, cold knocks. Julian froze, adjusting his loosened tie. Probably room service with more ice, he muttered. He walked over and opened the door. And the moment that door swung open, my life officially ended. Standing there wasn't a bellboy. It was David, my boring, passive husband whom I had looked down on for years. He didn't scream. He didn't charge in to throw a punch. He just stood there, phone in hand, recording everything, looking at me like I was a piece of trash floating in the gutter. That was the moment I realized I hadn't just lost my marriage, I had lost my dignity. My name is Jessica. I'm 35 years old. I was the marketing director at a major fashion firm in New York City. To the outside world, I was a success story, Pilates 5 times a week, regular Botox, and always dressed in the latest designer collections. I married David 5 years ago, and I'm going to be brutally honest with you right now. I never loved him. I married David out of spite. At the time, I had just been dumped by my bad boy ex of 5 years for a younger model. I was devastated. I wanted to prove to my ex that I had value, that someone was willing to get on one knee for me. David was the perfect safety net. He's a software engineer working at a tech startup in Brooklyn. He's not handsome. He has 0 fashion sense. T-shirts and jeans every day. And his personality is dull. He's the type of man who asks, "What do you want for dinner?" every single day, and obediently does whatever I say. I married him like people buy insurance, safe, stable, but completely passionless. We have a 3-year-old son. Life in suburban New Jersey was peaceful to the point of boredom. David did everything. He cooked. He picked up our son. He did the dishes. And me. I just went to work, came home, and scrolled through my phone. After the pandemic, David became even more introverted. He spoke less, focused on coding and our son. His silence drove me insane. I craved attention. I craved praise. I craved feeling like a queen again. And that's when I started looking toward the glittering office lights of Manhattan. When the lockdowns ended, I returned to the office ready to explode. My CEO, Julian, is 55, a typical Wall Street power player, salt and pepper hair, bespoke suits, and most importantly, power. He has a wife and 2 grown kids, lives in a Hamptons mansion, but everyone in the office knew he was an old wolf. At first, it was just business lunches. Julian praised my talent. "You're too smart for this role, Jessica. Does your husband know how lucky he is to have a sharp woman like you?" Those words were like heroin injected straight into my starving ego. At home, David only asked, "How was the potty training today? Are you tired?" But Julian talked about art, European vacations, ambition. Fire near straw eventually catches. I started using overtime as an excuse to have dinner with Julian. The most expensive restaurants in New York, Le Bernardin, Per Se, places David wouldn't dare step foot in because of the price. And then it happened. During a business trip to Chicago, after a few strong drinks at the hotel bar, I fell into Julian's arms. I didn't feel guilty. On the contrary, I felt alive. I justified it by telling myself David was too boring, that I deserved a man on my level. The affair lasted 6 months. I lived a double life. By day, the boss's hot mistress. By night, David's cold, irritable wife. But the nature of men like Julian is simple. They never stop at one. My company hired a new girl for the marketing team. Tiffany, 24 years old, fresh, innocent, and full of life. She was exactly like me 10 years ago, but radiant. I started noticing Julian's gaze shifting. In meetings, instead of looking at me, he was glued to Tiffany. He laughed at her lame jokes. He started inviting Tiffany to lunch for mentorship, the same old trick he used on me. Jealousy burned through me like acid, not because I loved Julian, but because I was losing my narcissistic supply. I felt insulted. I betrayed my husband and child for him, and now he was going to dump me for an intern. I became toxic. I started bullying Tiffany at work. I gave her menial tasks, scrutinized every typo in her emails, and spread rumors that she was lazy. I wanted to isolate her. I wanted Julian to see she had no value. I had turned into a monster. I was angry, stressed, and I brought all that toxicity home to dump on David. David remained silent, but I didn't know that the silence of an intelligent man is far scarier than screaming. Last Friday, Julian texted me, "Stay late tonight. I need you to review the quarterly plan. Book a room at the Ritz. I want quiet." I was ecstatic. I thought I had won against Tiffany. Julian still needed me. I texted David, "Huge project deadline. I'll probably crash at a co-worker's place or a hotel near the office. Don't wait up." David replied with one word, "Okay." I went to the hotel, showered, put on perfume, and wore my most expensive lingerie. I wanted tonight to be perfect to keep Julian hooked. We were in the room. Julian had just opened the wine. He started kissing my neck, running his hands through my hair. I closed my eyes, savoring the victory. And then, that fateful knock. When David walked in, time stopped. Julian, the powerful man, immediately pushed me away as if I were a contagious disease. He fumbled with his shirt, his face pale. "David, what the hell are you doing here?" I screamed, trying to cover myself with a bathrobe. David didn't answer. He held up his phone, panning across the room. The wine, the messy bed, and Julian standing there, looking terrified. "Hello, Julian," David said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "My wife doesn't know this, but I work in IT. I installed family sharing tracking on her phone 3 years ago for safety. And tonight, I saw my wife's location at a 5-star hotel, not the office." David turned to me. For the first time in 5 years, I saw pure contempt in his eyes. "I've suspected for a long time, Jessica. The strange perfume on your clothes, the way you hide your phone, the way you treat me like dirt. I just needed proof for the lawyers." I rushed to grab David's hand. "Wait, let me explain. It's not what you think." David shoved my hand away, a hard shove that sent me falling back onto the bed. "Don't touch me. I've already sent this video to Julian's wife." That sentence was like a nuclear bomb going off in the room. Julian's face went from pale to beet red. He turned and slapped me hard across the face. "You lied to me. You said your husband was a clueless idiot," Julian screamed, losing all his composure. David smirked, watching two traitors turn on each other. He turned his back and walked out. "My lawyer will contact you in the morning. Don't come home. I've changed the locks." The door slammed shut, leaving me and Julian in that luxurious room, which now felt as cold as a morgue. Everything that followed was a domino effect. Julian's wife, a powerhouse in real estate, was no pushover. She divorced Julian immediately and exposed everything to the company board. Julian was fired for ethics violations and inappropriate relationships with subordinates. And of course, to save his last shred of reputation, Julian blamed everything on me. He told HR I seduced him, harassed him. With his power, he got me fired that same week without a cent of severance. I was kicked out of my New Jersey home. David filed for full custody, armed with proof of my infidelity and instability. He proved I was an unfit mother who neglected her child for hotels. I had to move into a dingy studio apartment in Queens, burning through my savings on lawyers to no avail. Friends turned their backs, colleagues gossiped. I went from a proud marketing director to unemployed, branded as a homewrecker. Last night, I sat alone in my rented room, eating instant noodles, something I used to forbid David from buying because it was low class. I scrolled through Instagram. David had blocked me, but I saw a photo of him through a mutual friend. He was laughing, a radiant smile next to our son, and another woman, a simple, kind-looking woman baking cookies with them. He looked happy, happier than he ever was with me. I realized David wasn't boring. He was only boring to me because I never appreciated the peace he offered. He was a good husband, a good father, and I threw it all away for a few fancy dinners and hollow vanity. Now I have nothing, and the silence in this room is deafening. At this point, I think I need to tell you a few things. Sometimes life doesn't punish us for being bad people. It simply shows us the truth we refuse to face. You wanted to feel seen, valued, adored, and in that hunger, you lost the one person who actually offered you peace. But pain can be a teacher too. Here's the truth. You can't build happiness on the ashes of someone else's kindness. And the love you take for granted eventually becomes the love you lose. But this doesn't have to be the end of you. Let this be the chapter where you stop chasing validation and start rebuilding a self that no longer needs attention to feel alive. Learn from this, grow from this, and promise yourself one thing. The next version of you will never again destroy what you secretly long for, a simple, honest, peaceful love. Thank you for listening until the very end. If you have a story, a letter you want to share, feel free to send it to me, because maybe your words are exactly what someone out there needs to hear. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss the next letters. I'll see you again here at Midnight Letters. Good night, and may your heart rest gently.